Welcome back to Whispered Firelight Stories. The fire's burning low tonight, and the dark feels closer than it should. Settle in. This one's called The Widow of the Hollow.
They said it happened to a man who wanted to disappear. Not die, just fade. His name was Michael Lane, though some claim the Hollow stripped him of that long ago. Names, they say, don't hold in places that remember better than people do. He was 44 when his life came apart. One quiet evening, he came home early with takeout and a bottle of wine, thinking maybe the smallest kindness could pull a failing marriage back from the edge. The house smelled faintly of his wife's perfume, and a single light glowed upstairs. He climbed the steps, rehearsing some harmless joke, the kind that once made her roll her eyes before she smiled. But when he opened the bedroom door, the world folded inward. His wife was tangled in sheets with another man. The stranger didn't scramble for his clothes, didn't stammer excuses. He looked straight at Michael and smiled, a small, curling grin that seemed too calm for the moment, too practiced, like a mask he'd worn before. Michael dropped the bag. The bottle rolled and clinked against the baseboard. His wife gasped his name, but he said nothing. He turned, stepped into the hall, and kept walking until the sound of her voice was gone. He never went back. Months later, he headed for the mountains, chasing stillness through switchback roads and fog. He bought a cabin that leaned against the hillside like an old man catching his breath. The porch sagged. The windows were rimmed with green mold, and the roof had gone silver under the weather. It smelled of pine pitch and damp iron. Still, it was his. At the gas station before the Ridge Road, the clerk gave him a look. "You're setting up down in Widow's Hollow?" Michael nodded. The man spat tobacco into a cup. "Then you best not unpack too much. That place don't stay empty long. The widow don't like being lonely." Michael smiled politely. He wanted peace, not ghost stories. For a few nights, he almost got it. The air was sharp and clean. Crickets hummed like clockwork. The wind in the trees moved like breathing. It felt alive in a way he hadn't in months. But quiet in the hollow had weight. It pressed on the house, on him. It waited. On the third night, he woke to a faint scratching at the wall. Not an animal, too slow, too deliberate. A steady drag of something hard over wood, tracing long lines from floor to ceiling. He held still until it stopped. By morning, he told himself it was nothing. That afternoon, splitting logs behind the cabin, he saw her. A figure standing where the trees thickened, draped in rags that moved without wind. Her hair hung in ropes. Her skin was the color of old wax. She didn't move. She only watched. When he shouted, she stepped backward and vanished into the dark. From then on, unease gathered in the corners of the rooms. At dusk, he'd hear faint tapping under the floorboards, like knuckles counting time. Sometimes a whisper, his name drawn thin through the walls. "Come outside, Michael. Come to me." He stopped answering the door after sunset. On the sixth morning, a photograph lay on the kitchen table, his wedding photo. He remembered burning it the night he left. His wife's face still smiled. His own had been gouged away, leaving only a smear of brownish red across the frame. That night, while he lay awake, the air turned thick and sweet. He heard the sound of bed springs above him, his wife's laughter, the man's breath. The hollow was replaying the moment that had undone him, one cruel heartbeat at a time. When he screamed, the laughter only grew louder. By the eighth night, the smell of perfume clung to everything, sharp and cloying, like flowers left too long in water. He found handprints on the inside of the windows, long fingers dragging downward through the condensation. He stopped lighting fires. The smoke twisted into shapes that looked like faces. When he slept, he dreamed of her eyes watching from the dark beyond the porch steps. Then came the bundle, a handful of twigs tied with twine, placed neatly at his door. Inside, a knot of hair and string, and a strip of fabric soft as skin, stained the same gray as his wife's old nightgown. He threw it into the stove. The flames roared white for a moment, and something inside them shrieked. The smoke rose black and thick, smelling of rot and burned sweetness. That night, he saw her in the reflection of the window, not outside, in the glass, standing just behind his shoulder, grinning wide enough to show every tooth. He spun around, but the room was empty. The reflection stayed a heartbeat longer, mouth still moving though no sound came. The nights bled together. He stopped counting days. Food went untouched. The woods around the cabin grew quieter, as if holding its breath. Even the crickets had gone. Then she came inside. He woke to wait beside him on the bed, the faint rustle of cloth. A cool hand slid across his chest. He smelled lilac. For 1 weak second, he wanted to believe she'd come back, that everything could rewind to before the betrayal. He turned toward her. The face staring back was wrong. Skin stretched too thin, eyes wide and colorless, the mouth too large, teeth too many. And that grin, the same one the stranger had worn when Michael's world fell apart. She leaned close enough that he could feel the words against his ear. "She left you because you were weak," she whispered. "But I won't. I'll never leave." The voice was both his wife's and not. He could smell earth and decay in her breath. It filled him like warmth and sickness all at once. For the first time since that night, something wanted him. Before dawn, he packed a bag. He meant to leave before the sun rose, to drive until the hollow was only rumor behind him. But when he opened the door, she was waiting in the yard. She didn't move. She only smiled. Fog coiled around her feet like something alive. He dropped the keys. No one saw him again. Weeks later, hunters cutting through the valley found the cabin open to the cold. The door hung crooked. The hearth was full of ash that smelled faintly of lilac and iron. No clothes, no food, no trace of a man's life, only a single photograph above the mantel. Michael Lane stood beside the widow, her bony hand on his arm, her grin stretched almost human. He was smiling too, not forced, not afraid, just empty and still, like someone who'd found what he'd been looking for. The hunters left before sundown. They didn't take the ridge road back. When they spoke of it later, none of them said his name. Names, they said, are invitations, but stories travel. This one slid down the mountain trails, through truck stops and mining camps, told by men who swore they heard her voice when the wind turned east. They said she'd been a wife once, long ago, abandoned and forgotten, that her grief had soaked into the ground until the soil itself began to dream of her. And when the dreaming turned to hunger, the widow was born. She waits for the lonely, for the betrayed, for anyone hollowed out enough to hear her call. She doesn't crave blood. She craves company, and once she lays her hand on you, she never lets go. The hunters still cross themselves when they pass the turnoff. Locals toss salt into the fire, whisper prayers, pretend the story is older than truth. It doesn't matter. The hollow remembers. If you walk that valley now, the air changes. The birds go quiet. The ground feels soft, as though something beneath is still moving. Sometimes travelers find handprints on the windows of the old cabin, or smell lilac on the wind, though nothing grows there anymore. And sometimes, when the night is too still, they hear laughter echoing between the trees, a man's voice and a woman's answering it. The old surveyor who told the story looked around the fire then, eyes reflecting the flames. "You ever end up near Widow's Hollow," he said, "and you hear your name whispered from the dark, don't answer. If you see a woman at the tree line, standing too still, don't look back. And if she smiles at you—" He poked the fire with a stick, sending up a shower of sparks. "Don't smile in return, because that's how she knows you're hers. And once you smile back, she won't ever let you leave."
That was the widow of the hollow.
If the fire's still warm where you are, stay a little longer.
And if you want more nights like this,
Hit like, subscribe, and come back to the circle. There are always more stories waiting in the dark here at Whispered Firelight Stories.